This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. Glad to have you with us. We are here today to talk about tobacco and its impact on Arkansans' health. I'm joined by Ray Hanley, Arkansas Foundation for Medical Care CEO, Dr. Gary Wheeler, who is the Chief Medical Officer at the Arkansas Department of Health, although you've worn many hats before, as have you. So good to have you back with us.
Thank
good
you.
to have
Glad
you
to
with
be
us.
here. Thanks,
I haven't
Roby.
seen you in a long time,
I
so
know,
it's good to see you. Catch up.
I think we started in this field together.
We did
20
years ago.
Yeah.
Yes. I believe we were working on how
Clean
to spend
Indoor
the
Air Act.
state's tobacco settlement funds.
Right,
So
right.
it was a very interesting time there. Well, let's talk about what's happened over the last 20 years. What has happened over the last 20 years from that?
Well, we've made some baby steps. We, of course, got the Clean Indoor Air bill passed. It wasn't a perfect bill, but it covered a lot of people who were in public settings to protect them from secondhand and third-hand tobacco smoke. We had some tax increases in 2009 that were linked to the trauma program. That was a big step. Raised our tax on cigarettes about $1 a pack, and it had a big impact on driving people to quit. And in this last session, there's been a little bit of incremental help on kids by getting the T21 bill put into legislation, and that's the bill that would prevent kids from buying tobacco products who are under 21 years of age.
We'll get to vaping a little bit later on, but you travel a lot, Ray, and I have traveled some too, and I know when I go to a state where there's not a clean indoor health policy, it is so noticeable to be sitting in a restaurant.
Oh,
and
it
go,
is,
my gosh,
Roby,
it is terrible in here.
I've traveled a lot in third world countries and other places where they haven't even thought about smoking restrictions, and the difference is dramatic.
Yeah, you brought some props today.
Well, I
What'd you
did,
bring
just,
here?
just to show how far we have come, at least. From the 1950s, the Camel Tobacco Company gave the doctors at UAMS crush-proof cig pack boxes here for their
It
shirt
says Arkansas
pockets.
School of Medicine on it.
Yes, it
Campbell
does.
there.
And you know, when I was a kid, the adults all smoked these things, and unfiltered Camel, I think, is probably the equivalent of sucking on the tailpipe of my truck. And then the Smith Mortuary, the funeral home in Charleston, Arkansas, actually gave away ashtrays for its promo here, which is, so at least we don't do that anymore.
Right. Both of my grandparents died of lung cancer and
Well,
emphysema because they were from that generation. They died in their early
both
60s.
My parents died in their early 60s from tobacco-related cancer. And we face a real issue here still, and Gary's going to talk about what we're trying to do. But if you look at the numbers and consider, you know, cigarettes are the only legal product that, when used as instructed by the manufacturer, set it on fire and inhale, kills or sickens the user. Think about that. We've still got about 40 million people that smoke. We've got millions more that vape, including several million kids. And the tobacco cartel is moving into the vaping business because it's another profitable drug delivery device here. You look at the cost in Arkansas. According to the Arkansas Center for Health Improvement, $795 million a year is the cost of just the Medicaid program for smoking.
And the taxes only bring in...
The taxes bring in about $120 million.
Yeah, so there's a big
we're
deficit
losing
there.
a 7-to-1 ratio here. About 30% of Medicaid smokes. And you know, the American tobacco cartel kills more people than the Mexican drug cartel does. Think about that. And you know, the only difference is they don't kill their rivals, they instead kill their customers. But the model is similar. It's about selling addiction. You have to get people addicted to nicotine, which is one of the most addictive substances there is. And people don't, if they don't start smoking as kids, they're not going to smoke. And it is a terrible, terrible blight that we have to keep dealing with.
Gary, let me drill down with you. When you're out around the state quite a bit in your capacity here, why do people have trouble breaking that addiction? The resources are there, the warning signs are out there. What keeps somebody from breaking that addiction to tobacco products?
And it's an incredibly powerful addictive substance, and its impact on the brain is instantaneous. From the time you inhale a cigarette, it's a little less than 3 seconds before you start to get relief in your brain by release of chemicals that make you feel good. There's no other drug that quite has that capacity. So it is very, very difficult to break. And when you say there's resources, there are resources, but the reality is even with maximal resources and counseling and all, people who try to quit only succeed about 20 to 30% of the time with intensive counseling and support. So they have to try and try and try and try again.
Is that because
so it's
it
hard.
is so physically or physiologically addictive to, or is it a mental barrier that they can't overcome?
There are mental barriers, and once you start to fail at something you try, it gets even harder no matter what that is, whether it's losing weight or whatever. You have to be successful, and it's uncommon for folks to be successful. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't still do everything we can to help people to quit. There are a couple of things that really do help people to quit.
What are those?
And those are things that we've known for 20 years, which is if there's a financial consequence, that helps. So raising the price of tobacco products makes a difference. And the issue of social norms. So the fact that we did pass that clean indoor air bill was really, really important in send messaging to everybody that it's not normal to smoke. The problem that we continue to have is that there's loopholes in that law. So there are places you can go where you can smoke, and people feel normalized in those places, whether it's in bars, casinos, racetracks, small hotels, etc. So we haven't completely changed the social norm in the state, and now the big effort of the tobacco cartel is to normalize vaping and e-cigarette use as an alternative form of nicotine addiction that's acceptable.
I still want to come back to that, but one more thing. You brought up the point of the cost of the Medicaid program in the state of Arkansas, the $795 million. It's the first time I've seen kind of that type of analysis. It's probably been out there before. Do you think that changed the conversation with the legislature this time around and with policymakers?
I think it helped. I think it helped a little bit in the tax debate. I think it is ripe to come back again and revisit the tax issue, not only on cigarettes but vaping, because we're still far short of covering the cost. But yes, I think it helps, absolutely.
Right. And just to amplify that, it's not just that cost of Medicaid, it's the cost of the whole state economy. The estimates are that we lose about $3 billion a year, $3 billion with a B, dollars a year on tobacco-related consequences.
It's like productivity and...
Well, it's 1.2 billion to 1.4 billion in direct medical costs, and the rest for the secondary effects of productivity at work. People going on smoke breaks, people being sick, not sick enough to go to the doctor, but not sick enough to come to work. A lot of different costs like that.
And if you look at all the conditions that heart attack, stroke, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, not to mention lung cancer, emphysema, all the total systemic damage it can do to someone. And then you look at the dollar cost, and you cannot help but conclude, if you're honest, that it is an industry with no redeeming value. The tobacco industry is a plague on the American people, on the economy, no redeeming value whatsoever.
Right. One of the things that bothers me the most about this, when we go to national meetings and talk about this issue, a lot of folks say that it actually is counterproductive to talk badly about tobacco industry because we're attacking business. And there are a lot of people who are wedded to business. But there's a difference between bad businesses and good businesses, and these are bad businesses that are practicing in a way that hopefully the rest of the business community could recognize, and recognize the impact on their own folks. There are a lot of places in the state now where the businesses are adopting, particularly in the healthcare systems, a no tobacco policy for hiring because they recognize what the costs are.
Which AFMC has. We screen for tobacco just like any other drug, and we do not hire people that use tobacco at AFMC.
Let's talk about the vaping issue that is out there, and just how rapidly it has become an epidemic, particularly around younger kids. I've got kids that are high school age. my kids do not, but I do see their friends that do, and it's disturbing how quickly they can do that. It doesn't smell like the tobacco products
And it's
do.
all kinds of flavors,
And
bubble
it's
gum,
got-
blueberry.
exactly, that type of thing.
candy.
So how do you build some sort of safeguards from a health policy perspective against that? There's a lot of conversation out there, but if you're a 16-year-old kid, you're not listening to a lot of people telling you this is something that could
You don't
do
worry about your
damage to you
mortality
50
or
years from now, right?
respiratory disease at 45 or 50 when you're
Right.
16.
Right. Our only weapons against that are regulatory, frankly, because I think your point's right. Kids don't listen. The health department, I think, in Arkansas has been a kind of head of the game. We over 2 years ago were putting out statements about e-cigarettes and the dangers that they posed. People were challenging them, and basically everything that we said has been further proven with this literal flood of information about the harms of e-cigarettes that happened this past fall. So again, as I said, the regulatory process is the only way we can do it. We can control who is allowed to buy e-cigarettes. We can control their contents. The FDA is looking at flavorings as a and recognizes that flavorings entice young people to smoke. To limit the flavorings that
You
are
can tax
allowed.
them and make it a financial burden.
Right, and in Arkansas there are no taxes on e-cigarettes. That's the only tobacco product that there are no taxes other than standard sales
Which was
tax.
a big debate in this last legislative session, and it's basically parked an interim study right now. That Senator Jim Hendren took the lead on that. It had bipartisan support. What do you think will happen in the interim in terms of that conversation? Has there been any discussion about where that will go?
I haven't seen any, but I hope that because of the information that's out there, that the interim study committee will come back and seriously make the case for doing something with this next session. Because the tobacco cartel themselves, I mean, they're moving in, they're buying up the vaping business because that's the future of nicotine, drug delivery in the profits.
It's a disruptor to the old tobacco purchasing model there.
Right.
And you see that in other industries, financial.
And people like Philip
others.
Morris and Altura and those, they're not going to sit on the sidelines. They are going to jump into this.
Right.
Give
And
you the last word, Gary.
the last word. And what disturbs me the most is we have all the information we need to make good decisions to protect people in Arkansas. We've not done it as well as we should, and we need to make better decisions going forward.
All right. We'll see where this goes in the interim. It'll be an interesting discussion. We'll be covering that.
Absolutely.
Ray Hanley, Dr. Gary Wheeler, thank you both very much for being here.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
having
having
us.
me. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure.
That's all for today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.